Have you ever wondered what life might look like in 2071? Will ChatGPT glitch into Skynet and conquer the world with brain-rotted memes? Well, let's hope not. Or maybe humanity will finally abandon Earth's dying surface and yeet our asses into space. So, what kind of future do you see in your head? Well, in 2071, this is the world our MC's living in. Mike Spiegel and his partner in crime, Jet Black, cruising around on their ship, the Bebop. These two are broke bounty hunters. So broke they can't even afford real meat. So, of course, they're always chasing their next target, hoping to finally score a decent payday. Enter our villain of the week, Asimov Solenson, chilling on an asteroid city called Tequila with his perky waifu Katrina. And that baby is gonna play a big role in their escape plan. They roll into a bar, and Asimov cuts a deal for Bloody Eye, basically a drug that buffs your strength and agility that turns you straight up schizo in seconds. Before he can close the deal with the anime version of Alfred, they get ganked, and it turns into a full-on PvP match. But Asimov's so high, he pretty much solos everyone. Meanwhile, Spike's out here getting cosmic predictions from good old Laughing Bull, who basically pinpoints Asimov's location. Jet, meanwhile, is poking around the crime scene and manages to get more intel on Asimov by outplaying some leftover goons. Fast forward, Asimov comes down at a grimy rest stop. Spike strolls into the bathroom all chill, but Asimov's ready to throw hands. They don't actually fight, though. Instead, Spike bumps into Katrina outside and hits her with that Riz. They vibe for a bit, and Katrina even spills about Mars. Apparently, people live there now, so Elon kinda made it happen. Big win, I guess. So she's got this whole dream about starting over on Mars, holding her baby bump. Then Spike finally spills that her boyfriend is basically cooked and he's a bounty hunter. But he doesn't realize Asimov is right behind him, and Asimov nearly chokes the life out of him. Katrina manages to stop Asimov before he sends our boy to Jesus. What they don't know is that Spike managed to swipe some bloody eye in the process. Jet finds Spike knocked out, and they figure out what happened. Jet decides the bounty isn't worth the risk, and wants to let the cops or syndicate handle it. But Spike isn't ready to let it go. Later, Asimov tries to make another deal in a shady cafe. But Spike ambushes him, destroys the stash, and goes full one-on-one. Not gonna lie, Asimov sucks at his job, man. He should have just booted up Schedule 1 and taken notes on how to run this shit. Anyways, some syndicate goons show up mid-fight, but Asimov and Katrina manage to escape. As they try to steal a car, Katrina takes a bullet to the belly. Turns out, the baby was fake the whole time. Just a sash for Bloody Eye. They try to flee, but hit a police blockade. Realizing there's no way out, Katrina does something so unexpected, it even stuns Spike. She shoots Asimov and lets herself get killed by the police. I know, tragic. And trust me, it's about to get even more depressing. But before we get into that, let's focus on this guy, Abdul Hakim, carrying a suitcase holding something so important that 3 armed nerds burst in ready to shoot him for it. Too bad for them, though. Abdul easily takes them out, grabs his suitcase, and dips. Meanwhile, on the Bebop, Spike and Jet roll up on Mars. Broke, as always. Spike fights with his glitchy monitor until he tunes into Big Shot, a goofy bounty hunter show hosted by Punch and Judy in ridiculous cowboy cosplay. Today's big bounty is Hakim, though he looks nothing like the guy in the restroom earlier. An old contact, Doc, calls with info on Hakim, but he wants a cut. Spike talks him down to a smaller share, but only if he promises to punch Hakim for stomping him at his lab. Doc explains Hakim got plastic surgery and stole something valuable. The case. Hakim stops at a bar to lay low, But two shady guys notice the suitcase. One distracts him, while the other swipes the case and disappears. Hakim loses him when the kid hops onto a passing truck. The kid gets curious about what's inside the case, and when he finds out, it terrifies him. Back on the Bebop, Spike hears the case might pop up at a pet shop. The kid shows up there, trying to sell whatever's in the suitcase to the old shop owner. Spike busts in, mistakes him for Hakim, and pulls a gun. They open the case. Plot twist, it's just a corgi. Damn, can I pet that dog? When Spike found out that corgis are cheap, he just shrugs it off, apologizes, and doesn't even notice the real Hakim slipped by. Hakim finds the kid, pulls a gun, and tries to grab the dog. But the corgi bites him and takes off. And when Spike notices the chaos, he jumps in and kicks off a three-way chase. Hakim runs after the corgi, the lab nerds chase Hakim, and Spike tails everybody. Hakim almost catches the dog in a bridge, but Spike blocks him and they beat the shit out of each other. Then the dog suddenly leaps for a passing boat. Hakim jumps too. Spike goes after them, but the corgi bounces off Spike's face and he splashes into the river. Spike drags the corgi back to the Bebop. Jet slaps a collar on the dog, hoping it'll lead them to Hakim. The nerds are still after the corgi too, because this isn't just any dog. If the cops ever get their hands on it, they'd be cooked. Just what kind of dog is this anyway? Spike heads out again, walking the corgi like bait, while Jet tracks them with a collar. Meanwhile, the lab nerds fire up a high-frequency sound from their van, the kind only dogs can hear. The problem is, it works a little too well. Every dog in town goes nuts, including the corgi. Spike sprints after him, they pass Hakim, and everything turns into a wild mess again. Hakim hijacks a wedding car to jump back in, nearly runs Spike over, and keeps going. The nerds try to net the dog, but miss. Hakim grabs the corgi, knocks it out with gas, and speeds off. Spike hops in his swordfish to chase him down with a tracker. He corners Hakim's car on the freeway, but the nerds show up too, start shooting, and even harpoon the car. In the mess, the corgi wakes up, jumps on the wheel, and pops the door. Then bails. Bro really got outplayed by a dog. Spike gives up the chase to save the dog while Hakim and the nerds crash straight into a police station. A week later, Big Shot reports on the whole mess, and it turns out the corgi was part of an illegal experiment. They call it a data dog. Basically, it's a super smart mutt worth a lot of money. But Jet and Spike don't know any of that. Our MC's just stuck complaining about fleas. And bro's so done with it, he even jokes about eating the corgi. But what if I told you these two are gonna get mixed up in something way more valuable and way more dangerous than that dog? And to understand what that thing is, let me introduce this shawty. She walks into a small shop and tries to riz the owner, who offers her a cigar and a shady job. Before they can chat, she realizes she's being tailed. But they messed with the wrong bitch. She gets ganked, but instantly pulls out an SMG and sprays her pursuers. Too bad for her, the other guys roll up with an even bigger gun. When the shooting stops, she's surrounded and has no choice but to surrender. They drag her onto a ship to meet the boss, who calls her Poker Alice, a legendary gambler. The boss accuses her of cheating and throws her massive debt in her face. He gives her two options. 1, to rot in a cell, or 2, help him pull off a shady job. Meanwhile, on a casino satellite, Spike and Jet roll in, hoping to strike it rich. They split up. Jet hits the slots, while Spike works the card tables, helping some old dudes win before settling at blackjack. Alice is the dealer. She spots Spike and checks her monitor, thinking he's someone else. And this mistake will mess her up real bad. Earlier, the boss told her the plan. A guy comes to her table, loses on purpose, and tips her his last chip. She hands the chip to the boss, and oof, her debts are gone. Back at the table, it comes down to Spike and Alice. He sees she's counting cards, but just flirts instead. She wins the hand, leaving him with one chip. Instead of tipping her, he pockets it as a souvenir. As Spike leaves, he bumps into the real guy who was supposed to take the fall. Their chips get swapped by accident, and the lookalike bails. Alice corners Spike, demanding the chip. Bro's so confused, he calls her out for cheating, which stirs up the crowd and draws security. She tries to snatch the chip, but Spike pretends to swallow it, and a fight breaks out with the guards. Alice calls her ship and blasts off, only to spot Spike and Jet clinging to the outside, staring through her front window. Meanwhile, the lookalike gets dragged back to the boss, who's furious he doesn't have the chip. He puts a bounty on Alice and kills the poor guy. Back on the Bebop, Spike and Jet tie Alice up in the bathroom, blaming her for losing their winnings. She tries to cut a deal, saying her boss will pay for the chip. Spike fakes cuffing it up and gives it to Jet to check out. While they wait, Spike tunes into Big Shot and finds out Alice is actually Faye Valentine, and she's wanted for 6 million woolongs. Locked up, Faye uses a secret lipstick communicator to call Gordon and give away her location. When Spike and Jet come back, they tell her she's going to the cops. She pleads, but they're not buying it. Jet at least loosens her cuffs when she complains she can't even use the toilet. Just as they're about to cash in the bounty, Gordon shows up, claiming the chip's worthless. But that's bullshit. Jet explains it's actually important because it's an encryption key for laundering dirty money, and the ISSP wants it. Bro demands 30 million woolongs, and with no choice, Gordon agrees. Meanwhile, Faye picks the lock, raises their food, finds Ein the corgi, and sneaks to her ship. During the handoff, Spike suits up in 0G to swap the chip for the money. Gordon orders his men to blow up the Bebop after the deal, but Spike blocks the shot with the Bebop's ring, boots the thug into space, and keeps the chip. Faye bounces with the cash. Gordon's men fire at her, but the stray missile swings around and blows up Gordon's ship instead. Spike gets back safe, but he and Jet are broke again, stuck with one worthless chip. They head back to the casino, hoping for better luck. As they walk in, Spike hears someone yelling about a cheating dealer and watches a dot zoom off into the sky. He just smirks. And worry not, my friends. This isn't the last time the boys will be running into Faye. And they'll be caught up in an even bigger problem. Though Faye's drifting through space, dead broke after blowing through all the bribe money she stole last time. Out of fuel and down to her last snack, she hails a passing ship. But it ignores her. Then her scanner flickers to life, picking up a faint distress signal from a wrecked ship drifting in the void. And oh boy, you won't believe what she'll find there. Meanwhile, on a space station, Spike and Jet are hunting a bounty named Morgan, who's had plastic surgery to hide out. In the same restaurant, a shady group called the Space Warriors are having a meeting. Their leader, who everyone calls Mom and looks exactly like Yzma from the Emperor's New Groove, wants to punish someone for snitching on them. Just as Spike and Jet get ready to grab Morgan, the Space Warriors pull out their guns, wipe out Morgan and everyone in the restaurant, except for our boys who duck under the table just in time. Jet realizes Mom is actually wanted for turning the Space Warriors from peaceful activists into violent eco-terrorists. Spike holds her at gunpoint and is happy to swap targets for a bigger payout. But instead of fighting back, Mom just gives them this calm little smile and surrenders without a word. Like she knows something Spike and Jet would never see coming. Back in space, Faye suits up and boards the wrecked ship. A dying pilot hands her a strange case and begs her to take it to the ISSP, but not to open it. Of course, Faye opens it anyway, finding a weird vial with some mystery liquid inside. At the Bebop, Spike and Jet learn that Mom's real name is Twinkle Maria Murdoch. Jet tries to turn her in, but the local government cancels her bounty because they're scared of the Space Warriors. Turns out, they've threatened to release a bioweapon called Monkey Business, a virus that turns people into monkeys if Mom isn't freed. Meanwhile, they get a random call. And boy, oh boy, look who it is. Faye Valentine herself begging the Bebop for help. The moment she realizes it's those two idiots' ship, she instantly regrets it. Spike and Jet raid her ship, find the vial, and realize how dangerous it is. Meanwhile, Twinkle's crew threatens to launch the virus if she's not returned. Jet's old contact, Bob, admits the virus is real, but says the government is too scared to fight back. The boys have no choice but to let Twinkle go. And this lady thinks she's got the upper hand, not knowing Spike secretly slipped something into her pocket. The Space Warriors try to launch the virus anyway and release it in hyperspace. Spike and Faye team up and try to stop them, but they're outgunned. Luckily, the local government closes the hyperspace gate just in time, trapping the missiles and the Space Warriors inside. Inside the Warriors' ship, the whole crew panics because they won't be able to get back through the gate. But little do they know, they've got an even bigger problem, as Twinkle realizes Spike slipped the vial into her pocket. It shatters, releasing the virus on her own crew. Back on the Bebop, the crew's broke again with no bounty payout, and Faye just makes herself at home. Since they're strapped for cash, they really need that next bounty. But little do they know, it's someone way too close to Spike. Somewhere on Mars, two Syndicate bosses sign a blood pact to seal their new alliance. But the moment one leaves, his ship blows up. The other boss just stands there shocked before trenchcoat guys ambush him. Their leader, a silver-haired guy, slices his throat without a word. With his dying breath, the boss whispers that Spike would have stopped this. The silver-haired guy just cracks a smile. Back on the Bebop, Spike and Jet argue about the new bounty. The murdered boss, Mao Yan Rai. Spike wants in, but Jet's gut says it's a bad idea. He pushes Spike for answers, like what really ties him to Mao and why the bounty feels so personal. Spike just shrugs it off. Then Faye shows up, breaks the tension, and Spike heads out on his own. Jet warns him won't back him up, but Spike doesn't give a shit. Faye peeks at the bounty info, but Jet cuts her off. Right after, Jet's old contact calls with some juicy info, but Faye snatches it for herself. Later, she shows up at an opera house, pretending to be Mao's guest. Meanwhile, Jet digs deeper into Mao's files and cracks an encrypted message that proves things are way more tangled than they look. At the opera, guards drag Faye into Mao's private box, only for her to find Mao already dead beside her. A cold voice tells her not to be scared. It's him, the silver-haired killer, Vicious. Elsewhere, Spike bumps into Annie, an old ally who can't believe he's alive after 3 years. They share a drink as Annie tells him Mao spent years looking for him. She begs him not to fight Vicious, but she knows he will anyway. Spike goes back to the Bebop for ammo. Jet tries to stop him, warning the bounty's a setup. Spike admits he knows, but says he owes Mao. His past won't let him go. Jet says he lost his arm for being too reckless, but Spike's mind is made up. His past is hunting him down, whether he wants it or not. They get a call from Faye, who's tied up. When she tries to tell him her location, Jet wants to hang up, but Spike knows it's bait and demands to know where she is. Turns out, she's in an old crumbling cathedral. Spike rolls up to the cathedral. When he comes face to face with Vicious, it's clear these two share a bloody history. One of the thugs working under Vicious grabs Faye, but Spike drops him with a single shot. Gunfire tears through the church while Faye escapes. Spike pushes upstairs, wounded but locked in. Back on the Bebop, Faye begs Jet for backup. At first, Bro wants no part of it, but his conscience eats at him. He leaves his bonsai and goes anyway. Spike corners Vicious, and the two stand face to face, gun versus sword. Vicious says they're both just killers with blood on their hands. Spike tells him he's finished with that life, but Vicious doesn't buy it. They clash. Spike pulls the pin on a grenade just as Vicious hurls him through the stained glass. The church blows apart behind him as he falls. In that freefall, Spike flashes back to a blonde woman patching him up, humming as he drifts to sleep. Days later, he wakes up bandaged on the Bebop. Faye's there, humming off key. He mutters she's terrible at it, and Faye rolls her eyes, smacks him with a pillow, and storms off. But the thing is, who was that woman in Spike's memory? What really happened with him and Vicious? And who is Spike, really? Next thing you know, Spike's on an operating table. Doctors all around him, cyber parts scattered everywhere, and a shiny new eye being lowered towards his face. He jolts awake. But is it just a dream or some buried memory? Now he's chilling in a blues club, watching a kid prodigy shred the harmonica. Back on the Bebop, things stay rough as ever. The crew's so broke that Faye even eats the last can of Ein's dog food. At the club, Spike and Jet spot their mark. A guy named Giraffe. I'm really starting to wonder about this world's naming sense. Anyway, they've got no clue what they're stepping into. A mess so twisted it ties back to immortality itself. They're about to move in when Spike notices a big dude blocking the way. It's Fatty, another bounty hunter, and an old buddy of Jet's. Jet distracts him so Spike can tell Giraffe solo. Giraffe's trailing the harmonica kid and a guy in a wheelchair. He follows them to a hotel, busts into their room, and shouts at the guy, Zebra, to give it back. But Giraffe gets shoved right out the window. Spike catches him on the swordfish's nose, but Giraffe's already dying. With his last breath, he warns Spike not to be fooled, says, help him, and hands over a ring. Back outside, Jet bribes Fatty with candy for some info. Fatty spills. The kids win, and the guy's Zebra. They were part of a defense squad that raided a lab years ago. Zebra vanished, and now he's Wen's so-called guardian. Back on the Bebop, Faye and Jet dig into Wen's past and find something freaky. The article's from 30 years ago, so how's the kid still a kid? Spike spots Wen at another club and tails him and Zebra to a warehouse. He tries to talk, but he's stunned when the kid whips out a gun and shoots him in the arm like it's nothing. Wen tells Spike he's not really a kid. Ever since a hyperspace gate accident blew up his family and froze him in time, he's been immortal. Now he's got Zebra trapped as his fake guardian. Spike manages to outplay Wen and even gets a headshot in. But when he goes to find the body, Wen's gone. Back on the Bebop, they hook Zebra up to a brainwave monitor to dig through his memories. They see Giraffe trying to save Zebra with a gem, but Wen shoots him and he falls out the window. Jet figures out the gem was made from hyperspace energy, the same stuff keeping Wen alive. So they turn it into a bullet. Wen hijacks a taxi and kills the driver, but Spike hunts him down in the swordfish, blasts the cab off the road, corners him, and fires the gem bullet straight at Wen's forehead. At first, nothing. Then Wen suddenly ages decades in seconds. Bro instantly turns into Golem and just smiles, glad to finally die. Spike tries Wen's harmonica but can't play a note. He tosses it in the air, points his fingers like a gun, and bang! Damn, the immortal kid sure is creepy. But the trio's about to meet someone really interesting. And she's pretty badass. Everyone knows her as VT. Nothing more. Her name's so mysterious, people keep betting real money trying to guess it. Nobody's ever gotten it right, and she's got a fat pile of bands to prove it. But why is she keeping her real name under wraps? What's she hiding? Inside the diner, VT sees the place swarming with bounty hunters, and she hates every single one of them. Wait till she meets our boy. He's hiding his ass in the bathroom, nursing a brutal hangover. Bro's griping to Jet about some bounty named Deckard. Supposedly, the guy's got a dragon tattoo. Spike asks about Faye and finds out she's tailing someone at this kid-themed place called Woody's. At Woody's, Faye spots a big guy with what looks like a dragon tattoo and pulls a gun. Sure, he's Decker, but a nerdy guy nearby freaks out when he hears the name and tries to slip away. She tells him to call the cops, but as he slips out, she spots a real dragon tattoo on his shoulder.
Oh my god.
Wrong guy all along. Back at Max, some rough bounty hunters are hassling a waitress. VT doesn't stand for that and jumps in to defend her. Spike tries to ignore it, nursing his hangover cure, until a thug bumps him and cracks the egg on him. Now he's pissed and jumps in swinging. While that's happening, Faye chases the real Decker through a parking lot in her ship. She nearly corners him at an elevator, but he throws a vial that explodes and one-shots her ship, letting him get away. Spike and VT finish up the thugs and toss them out. VT still hates bounty hunters, without knowing the guy who helped her is one too, so she buys Spike a drink to say thanks. He makes himself a prairie oyster cocktail, and she mentions her late husband used to drink those too. And man, you won't believe who her husband is. Then those three old guys from outside come in and try to guess VT's name. They fail, obviously, and throw more money in the pot. Spike wants to take a crack at it, but Jet calls and accidentally outs him as a bounty hunter. VT calls him out for lying and makes him pay for his own drink. Spike shrugs it off, but when he goes to grab his ship, he finds it trashed by the same a-holes he beat up earlier. Now stranded, Spike tries to hitch a ride, and guess who picks him up? VT spots him, tries to ditch him, but her cat Zeros likes Spike and climbs on his head, so she relents. They even pick up Faye along the way, but VT cranks her heavy metal so loud, Faye can't even tell Spike what Decker's ship looks like. Back on the Bebop, Faye finally fills him in. Meanwhile, VT gets a call from Otto. He got sideswiped by some jerk trucker who sounds just like Decker. She doesn't hesitate. She rallies the other haulers and soon she's on Decker's tail, chasing him straight into a tangle of old asteroid mines. Spike tries to warn her about Decker's explosives, but the signal dies. Now it's a race against the dark with half-busted ships. Decker lashes out, tossing bombs at VT, but he screws up. One blast sets off a chain reaction. The mine caves in on him, cracks his cockpit, and he suffocates before anyone can touch him. The gang loses another shot at a good bounty. But the real nightmare's just beginning. The unstable nitro, the collapsing tunnels, the whole place is primed to blow. VT, Spike, and Faye gun it for an exit, but another blast buries the chute. Spike's weapons can't punch through, and Faye's out of tricks. Then VT gets an idea. They'll use Decker's nitro to blow the rocks open. Spike rigs it in his escape pod, cuts loose, and kicks off into open space. One blast nearly sends him drifting forever, but he pulls his gun and fires. The recoil flings him back to VT's hatch just in time. Behind them, the pod hits the rubble and explodes. Light floods the tunnel, and they blast out seconds before the mines go up in flames. Safe in VT's cockpit, Spike spots her pocket watch and finally puts it together. Victoria Terpsichore, widow of the legendary bounty hunter Ural Terpsichore. She offers him the whole pot of cash, but Spike just grins, peels off a small cut, and tells her to buy her husband a drink, wherever he's waiting up there. And while VT disappears back into the stairs, somewhere out there, a kid with his own secret is about to cross Spike's path, carrying something he never should have stolen. So Spike and Faye are flying out to Venus when they end up stopping a bunch of hijackers mid-flight. After they land at the spaceport, Spike runs into a guy from the same flight who's jumpy as hell. Turns out his name's Rocco, and he even tries to sneak up on Spike first. But Spike's not that easy to surprise. Rocco's not trying to kill him though. It's actually more than that. He begs Spike to teach him how to fight. Out on the street, after brushing him off a bunch of times, Spike finally shows him a move and gives him a tip on how to flow like water. Before they get anywhere, one of Rocco's shady buddies shows up, so Rocco takes off. But not before stuffing a package into Spike's hands and telling him to meet at an old cathedral the next night. Little does Spike know, whatever's in that package is enough to get a man killed. Thing is, Rocco's actually a wanted man. He stole a valuable plant called Grey Ash from his own gang. Its leaves can treat Venus sickness, this nasty condition people get on the planet. When Spike and Jet crack open the package, Jet points out the plant's worth way more than the bounty on Rocco's head. But Spike decides to find him anyway. Following the trail, Spike ends up at this old wreck in the desert and gets held up by a young woman with a gun. He talks her down by dropping Rocco's name, and over tea, they talk. She's Stella, Rocco's sister. She lost her sight because of Venus sickness, and the only real cure is that rare plant. She has no clue her brother stole it for her. She even shows Spike a music box from Rocco, not knowing there are seeds inside the lid. Spike goes to meet Rocco at the cathedral, ready to hand the plant back. But the gang isn't far behind, and bullets start flying. Faye shows up just in time, blasting a few of the thugs. In the chaos, the container gets smashed. The plant's ruined. Spike sees a guy sneaking up on Rocco with a knife and calls out. Rocco pulls the move off. Smooth, just like Spike showed him. And for a second, he's proud. And then he gets shot. Rocco doesn't make it. Lying there, he asks Spike to take care of Stella. What's even more tragic is Spike didn't hear his last words. He wonders if Rocco had met him sooner, would he have called him a friend? Later at the hospital, Stella's excited because she's finally getting the treatment to see again. When she tells Spike the first thing she wants to see is her brother's face, Spike has to break it to her that Rocco's gone. But when she asks what he was like, Spike just smiles and says her brother was one hell of a guy. Now, after leaving Venus behind, they're heading back to a planet ready to pull them into a strange mess. One that's all thanks to an AI. And that planet is Earth. So an old satellite drifting around Earth randomly boots up and wakes up a bunch of nearby attack satellites. They start blasting lasers down into what used to be South America, carving giant animal shapes right into the ground. Naturally, everyone freaks out, and there's a big bounty for whoever messed with the satellite to make this happen. But more importantly, what the heck happened to Earth? Most people on Earth these days stay underground, since chunks of the moon are still raining down thanks to that old hyperspace gate accident that blew a massive piece off. Every day there's a rock shower forecast to see if it's safe to go outside. Up top, there's this skinny red-headed teen stretched out on the ground, soaking up the sun while listening to the forecast. It starts off fine, but the satellite lasers trigger a surprise rock shower, and the odds of getting hit shoot up to 90%. She checks the spaceport logs, sees the Bebops coming her way, and she's instantly hyped. But why? Is the Bebop really that famous? And if it is, why is the gang still broke as hell? Anyway, the crew hears there's this legendary hacker on Earth called Radical Edward who might be able to crack the mystery behind the satellite. Jet tries to piece together who Ed really is by asking around. But every story he gets is so out there that no one can tell fact from fiction. Meanwhile, the cops bust into this junked up shack, yelling for Edward to surrender. Out pops this grinning red-headed kid, Ed herself, jumping out of a mountain of trash and scaring the cops half to death with a big "Hi!" Instead of running, Ed just hacks into their ship parked outside and flies it around like a toy. The poor cops can only watch as she accidentally crashes it and destroys it. Ed doesn't stop there though. She breaks into the satellite network, chats with the AI inside, and nicknames it MPU. Turns out there was never a hacker. MPU, the satellite itself, just wanted to make its own giant art because it missed the ancient land carvings. Like the Nazca lines in Peru. You know, those huge geoglyphs etched into the desert centuries ago? Yeah. So Ed decides to tip off the Bebop crew and hacks into their system to video call them. Which freaks them out since they don't even have a working live feed on that computer. Ed says she'll help, as long as Faye agrees to some secret deal. Faye just shrugs and goes along with it. The plan? Sneak up on MPU and knock out its communications so it can't wake the other satellites again. Spike coasts in with almost everything shut off so he doesn't get spotted. But the second he fires his cannon, MPU catches it and blocks the shot with another satellite. Next thing they know, the sky's lit up with lasers aimed right at Spike and Faye. Ed tells them to get super close to MPU so the others won't risk hitting it. Spike plugs in manually, and Ed copies MPU's data onto a drive. Spike and Jet hand the copy over to the cops, explaining that the AI was behind the whole thing. Of course, the bounty show Big Shot announces they don't pay out bounties for non-humans. So, surprise, surprise, Bebop crew gets nothing. Again. Meanwhile, Faye's acting weird. She really wants to ditch Earth ASAP. So, Jet asks what exactly she promised Ed that's got her acting like this. Well, they escape and leave the poor kid behind. Or so they think. From the ground, Ed hacks into the Bebop's nav system, reroutes it, and forces them to land. She skips aboard, thrilled to claim her reward, which turns out to be joining the crew. Spike just stares at Jet, deadpan, reminding him he hates tomboys, kids, and pets. And now they've got the full set. All on one ship. Well, Spike shouldn't worry. Things are only gonna get weirder from here. So the gang heads over to Ganymede to cash in on a bounty. But something's off with Jet. Bro is just sitting there staring at an old pocket watch lost in his own head. He's having this flashback about how he once found that watch and a goodbye note left in a bed, and some woman just walking away from him into the rain like she's in a sad music video. Whoa, who is that lady? Whoever she was, she's got Jet so caught up in his thoughts he doesn't even notice Spike and Faye messing with him. While the gang's teasing him, they radio in the bounty, and the local cop on duty turns out to be one of Jet's old homies. They catch up for a bit, and Spike and Faye find out something they didn't expect. Jet used to be a cop, and with a nickname on top of that. People call him the Black Dog because once he bit into a case, bro never let go. The officer also brings up Jet's ex, Elisa. Turns out she's got a little bar nearby. Yep, Elisa is that mystery lady in his head. But what did he do to make her ghost him like that? So when they land on Ganymede, Jet's like, "Aight, bet, I gotta see her." He pulls up to her sketchy bar and asks some shady dude if she's around. Buddy acts all clueless and goes for something in his jacket. But Elisa comes out like, "Chill, he's good." Turns out that sketchy dude, Right, is her new boyfriend. Elisa explains the bar's broke and she's about to close up and bounce. Back on the Bebop, the cop calls again and Spike picks up. He gets a tip that Elisa's new boyfriend is actually wanted. there's a bounty on Wright because he killed a loan shark Elisa owed money to. Back at the bar, Jet takes out that old pocket watch and sets it on the table between them. He asks Alyssa why she disappeared without a word, leaving him with nothing but that watch and a note that just said, "Farewell." She avoids giving him any real answer, so Jet gets up and leaves. Wright comes back in a panic when he finds out Jet's a bounty hunter and starts regretting what he did. But Elisa calms him down and says they gotta dip. ASAP! They jump in a speedboat and take off, but their escape doesn't go smoothly. Once Spike spots them, he swoops in and starts blasting. Wright somehow outplays Spike so badly he almost smacks into Jet's ship. Spike tells Jet there's a bounty on Wright, but Jet says he'll handle it solo. Jet chases the couple down through the narrow canals and rips their boat's engine off with his ship's grapple. Brent and Elisa try to run on foot, but Jet catches up. Elisa pulls a gun on him and begs him to let them go. Jet tells her that if he doesn't bring them in, someone else will. She fires a few shaky shots into the air and finally admits she left because he was too controlling. She wanted to live life on her own terms. She drops the gun and breaks down sobbing. Jet knocks Wright out and tells him to stop being a wuss and take care of Elisa. The cops show up and take Wright away, but it looks like he might get off with a self-defense plea. Elisa promises to wait for him. In the end, Jet looks at the old watch one last time, then tosses it into the water, letting the past sink with it. But just when one problem's over, something new is already waiting for them back on the Bebop, and it's even more toxic than an ex. You see, somewhere deep inside the Bebop, something slithers through the vents, something that shouldn't even exist. So, since the gang has no bounties to chase, everyone's broke and bored. Again. Jet tries to hustle up some cash by gambling with Faye, but she wipes him out, cheats him out of his money, his dignity, and pretty much everything else, even his clothes.
Oh, no.
Defeated, Jet wanders off half-dressed, looking for an old blanket in storage. That's when he notices something weird. A big old fridge tucked away, where he's sure there wasn't one before. Before he can poke around too much, an alarm blares through the ship. Spike and Faye find Jet passed out on the floor, complaining that something bit him. They just laugh it off. Probably a rat, they figure, until they see a nasty purple bite mark on Jet's neck.
Oh, no.
They've never seen anything like it. Spike tries to figure out what did it. Maybe it's a mutant rat, or maybe, as Ed insists, it's some unknown space creature. He tries to test Ed's fancy thermal scanner on the thing, but she bolts off chasing Ein before he can. Meanwhile, Faye starts asking weird questions and freaking out about all the time she still wants to waste in life, then collapses too. She's also bitten.
Oh, no.
The infected crew pile up in the lounge, delirious and fading fast. Spike, armed to the teeth and now officially creeped out, tries to hunt the intruder. Then Bro hears Ein whining and finds the poor dog out cold in a vent, bitten.
Oh, no.
In the shadows, he finally sees it, and it tries to attack Spike. But luckily, Bro manages to escape. Deciding he's had enough, Spike grabs a flamethrower and goes full exterminator. He corners the thing in a corridor, gases it, and then burns it to a crisp. Job done. Or so he thinks. That's when he realizes something nasty. Turns out, a year ago, he'd hidden a prize Ganymede rock lobster in that fridge, stashed it for himself, and totally forgot it was in there. When he opens that fridge, it's disgusting inside. We're talking molds, spores, unholy lumps growing and pulsing like a mini alien jungle. Panicking, Spike shuts off the gravity, shoves the whole fridge to an airlock, and ejects it into the void. Good riddance. Problem solved. Until the fridge door swings open and Rimuru's evil twin alien floats back inside for one last bite and dips. Spike barely seals himself in before he blacks out, drifting in 0G. And everyone else? They're all drifting in 0G too, including Ed, who's sleeping like a baby. In her sleep, she reaches out, grabs whatever that thing is, and eats it whole. Like it's nothing. But don't worry, the gang is still alive. For now. Because soon enough, they'll be pulled into something bigger. Something that has to do with someone Spike loves. Far away on a Red Dragon Syndicate ship, there's tension in the air. Vicious is talking to the three Japanese version of the Watchers in Marvel. Vicious wants to handle a shady drug deal with someone he used to know on Callisto. The old man don't trust him, but they let him go anyway, sending a quiet, loyal bodyguard named Lin to keep him in check. Back on the Bebop, Spike wakes up to find out Faye bailed on the crew. And she didn't just leave a note, she took every last cent with her. Then Ed scans the airwaves and picks up a name that hits Spike hard. Really hard. That name is Julia. The flashes in Spike's mind show glimpses of a woman who once saved his life. But what really happened between them? And why does just hearing her name make him lose it? Spike quickly heads out, which pisses Jet off because Bro is rushing into things again. Jet's had enough and shoves him off the crew right there. Now everyone's on their own, drifting apart in the cold. Meanwhile, on the frozen streets of Callisto, Faye's not exactly celebrating her big payday. She's holding up in the blue crowbar, sniffling with a cold and a bad mood, nursing cheap booze and listening to a lone sax player pour his soul out. After his set, the sax guy, Gren, warns her that there aren't any women in this town, so she'd better watch her back. While Faye tries to drown her regrets, Spike ends up on the wrong end of a street fight. A local gang mistakes him for Vicious and jumps in, hoping to snatch his drug money. Big mistake. Spike beats the truth out of them and hears Gren's name dropped as the one who set up this shady deal. Jet shows up on Callisto too, tracking his own lead. A TV in a rundown bar flashes a bounty for an escaped convict. Gren, again. Later that night, Faye crosses paths with the same gang, but she's not about to let them corner her twice. She roughs them up again herself until Gren swoops in and pulls her out of trouble. Back at his tiny apartment, she vents about why she ditched Spike and Jet. Maybe she was running, maybe she just didn't want to hurt them. But while Gren's in the shower, Faye overhears a strange message from a voice she instantly recognizes. Vicious. That's why she storms into the bathroom, gun aimed at Gren's head, only to freeze when she sees him. He's standing there, half hidden by the steam. Part man, part woman. Damn, what happened to this guy? Somewhere nearby, Spike finally finds Vicious waiting in the snow, Lin by his side. And, surprisingly, Lin and Spike know each other too. A fight's about to explode, but Vicious says that Julia was here. In this same frozen town. But where is she now? Before Spike can demand answers, Lin blocks him like a human shield, and Spike ends up staring at a gun barrel. Our MC tries to talk no jutsu Lin, but a shot rings out. Spike drops to the ground, left for dead in the icy streets. Is he really dead though? Before we find out what really happened to our boy, let us first go back to Gren and Faye. Gren tells Faye that back in the Titan War, he and Vicious actually fought side by side in the same squad. After the war, though, things went south. Vicious testified against Gren in a spy trial, and Gren got locked up. While in prison, Gren went insane from insomnia and started abusing drugs. Bro gets so addicted that the drugs messed up his hormones and changed his body in ways he can't undo. Now Gren's got one thing left. Confront Vicious, find out why he betrayed him, and maybe settle the score. So going back to our MC, Spike is actually still alive. He wakes up and realizes Vicious and Lin didn't kill him. They just knocked him out with a tranquilizer. While looking for Faye, Jet stumbles on info about both Julia and Gren. He tracks down Gren's apartment and finds Faye lying there, handcuffed and alone on the bed. Jet calls Spike and makes him a deal. If Spike helps catch Gren, he can come back to the Bebop. Gren, meanwhile, sends Spike a message about where this so-called trade's going down. Up on the rooftop, Gren, wearing a hood, meets Vicious to make the deal. Well, at first, Vicious has no idea that it was Gren. He thought that it was some random woman he brought, but once the handoff was done, Gren reveals who he is, and this time Vicious betrayed him for the second time because the case he brought is not money, but a bomb, and Gren knows it and sends it back to Vicious. Vicious doesn't even deny it. He says he sold Gren out because he doesn't believe in anything anymore. And so, Gren tried to shoot Vicious, but Lynn died trying to protect Vicious instead. Spike shows up in his ship right as everyone's ships launch. Vicious shoots down Gren's craft to get him out of the way while he tries to chase down Spike. But then, Vicious suddenly hears the music box playing. The same one Julia gave him that he later gave to Gren. Turns out, Gren hid it inside the drug package and rigged it as a bomb. The blast cripples his ship, and he had no choice but to retreat. Spike finds Gren's wrecked ship. He's ready to call for help, but Gren's injuries are just too bad. Gren says Julia's gone, and he has no idea where she is or what happened to her. Bro just talks about her smile and how she always talks about Spike. Then, he asks Spike to let him board his ship so he can drift towards Titan one last time. So Spike lifts him back into his ship, tows it out, and sends it off into space. Spike returns to the Bebop empty-handed, but Jet lets him back on board anyway. But just when they think they've left the past behind, what if one of them is about to get tangled in a stranger's game? So Jet, Spike, and Faye manage to bust a whole ring of hackers running this shady hyperspace toll booth scam. Basically, the guys they caught were secretly charging people extra every time they passed through. But even though the gang manages to catch a lot of them, they don't get any bounty money yet. Not until they figure out who the real mastermind is behind all this. The thing is, none of these hackers even know each other. But weirdly, a few of them were carrying chess pieces. But why? The gang tries to figure it out, and when Ed pokes around, she finds out the chess pieces aren't just trophies. They're keys. Each one lets you jump into this shady online chess game. So the crew lets Ed sit there, playing endless rounds of cyber chess with someone. But who? Meanwhile, Jet heads off to talk to the big shots who run the hyperspace gates. He bumps into another bounty hunter, Jonathan, who's storming out, mumbling that this job's not as easy as it looks. But Jet has a plan. He tries to squeeze info out of the suits, but they stonewall him, so he plants a listening device in their office. Turns out, they start whispering as soon as he leaves. They're covering something up. Something about an old genius. Chess Master Hex. So, who the heck is this guy? Hex was a chess prodigy and one of the original brains behind the Hyperspace Gate project. But he got fired when he started pointing out flaws in the gate designs. Flaws that, later caused that big disaster that messed up Earth. So, did he set this up for revenge? Or does he want to play one last game? Back on the Bebop, Ed's still going at that chess game. And when the gang asks her to help them find Chess Master Hex, she just casually says she's actually playing against him. They trace Ed's match and end up at this lonely floating scrapyard. Spike and Faye go inside this junk world, and as they get deeper, things start getting weirder and weirder. First, they see animals floating around. Then, an entire greenhouse. Then, actual people living there. Spike and Faye pinpoint Hex's location. But they've got a problem. Turns out, they were followed by Jonathan. When Jet bugged the office, Jonathan overheard everything and tailed them there. Now he wants Hex to pay up because he blames him for ruining his life. Jonathan freaks out, waving a gun and screaming for his money back. He finally snaps and starts blasting, but Spike beats the crap out of him before he can hurt anyone. Jet later pieces it all together. Hex rigged this digital trap to go off automatically after the next system update. 50 years later. He wanted payback, but by the time it all went down, he'd lost his mind. Guy doesn't even remember setting it up. The only ones left who could expose the real crooks, the execs who ignored Hex's warnings, are the Bebop crew. So Jet tells the gate bosses to drop the bounty, let the old man be, or he'll leak their dirty laundry to the public. Back on the Bebop, Ed's still glued to her game. She's been playing Hex for a week straight, hoping to beat him. Faye asks why she looks so bummed, and then Hex finally checkmates her. Ed just screams in defeat, while somewhere in the floating junkyard, Chess Master Hex leans back, a tiny smile on his face. One last move was made. Then he closes his eyes. One last good game. But while the crew hacks one man's game, what if the next mystery waiting for them is buried deep in one of their own? And what if the truth is a lie she can't afford to remember? Sometime later on the Bebop, Faye's taking care of Ein, and for some reason, Ein's eyebrows remind her of this guy she knew back then. Whitney Haggis Matsumoto. What a name! Anyway, she ends up telling Ein this messed up story about her past. A few years back, Faye woke up from cryosleep with zero clue who she was or how she even got there. A doctor tells her she'd been in cold sleep for over 50 years, frozen after a bad accident until they could fix her. Kinda like Captain America, but broke. Because when she wakes up, she finds out she owes a crazy 300 million wulong in debt. All because they kept her on ice that long. Resigned lawyer, Whitney, shows up to help her get her bearings. Bro is all smiles, a smooth talker, and tries to explain who she is and what happened to her. But as he is explaining, she doesn't believe him and gets so stressed she passes out. That night, Faye tries to ditch the clinic, but once she steps outside the hospital perimeter, an alarm goes off. She wanders around the area nearby and can't believe what she's seeing. The holograms, the flying cars? Bit of an overstimulation, don't you think? Then Whitney finds her, and she runs away, but she's too weak to keep going. She explains that this whole situation is too much. She can't remember who she was, and there's no way she can pay off that huge debt. But Bro rizzes her up and tells her she shouldn't worry. He'll help her figure it all out, and who knows? Maybe she'll meet someone wonderful. Then there's this montage of them hanging out. Faye stuffing her face, reading fancy hologram books, living it up a little. She and Whitney start going out together. Dinner, dancing, the whole thing. It kind of looks like they're falling for each other. But one night, when they're driving home, debt collectors show up out of nowhere and chase them down. Whitney tells her to run and says he'll deal with it. As she runs away, a loud explosion goes off behind her. Later, back at the clinic, she's told that all of Whitney's assets are now hers. But instead of getting money to pay off her debt, she finds out he basically dumped all his debts onto her too. Bro. Back to the present. Spike steps out of the bathroom and hears everything. But he just thinks Faye's making it all up. And then, guess who shows up as their next bounty? Whitney. Coincidence? I think not. Turns out, Whitney faked his own death. And Faye, of course, is crashing out. He confronts him while he's tied up on the ship, but Whitney says he doesn't really know anything more about who she really is. Then the cops come by to pick up Whitney and pay out the bounty, but Faye still wants answers. She snaps, busts Whitney out, and takes off with him in her ship. Spike chases her down but ends up letting them go after a short dogfight. Faye tries again, cornering Whitney. Who is she, really? Whitney just fumbles around before finally admitting he's clueless. She never knew. Then out of nowhere, they get a radio call from the cops. But it turns out it's actually Faye's old doctor from the cryo clinic. And they just stole a police ship to rescue Whitney. He tells her he's the one who gave her the name, Faye Valentine. Any real info about who she was or why she was frozen? Gone. Lost in the chaos after the astral gate blew up. Meanwhile, her entire backstory was just made up. They ditch Whitney when the real cops show up and surround them. And that's when Whitney says something he shouldn't have. He accidentally calls the doctor Uncle. Fed up with all the lies, Faye drags Whitney back to the cops herself and the crew claims their measly bounty. Whitney tries to spin it, telling her his love for her was real at least. Spike says her past doesn't really matter anyway. She's got a future now. Says the guy with the most mysterious past ever. Back on the Bebop, Faye, being Faye, grabs a marker and doodles eyebrows on ice, just like Whitney's. But Faye's story won't be the last secret the crew has to face. Now, somewhere in space, something crazy is happening. There's this prison ship full of inmates, but they turn the tables and hijack it on the way to Pluto. They kill the guards, take over the whole thing, and plan to break free. Uday, this cold, quiet guy, takes charge, and now the whole ship's under his control. Nobody really knows where they're headed next, but it sure won't be good. Meanwhile, on the Bebop, Faye's grumbling about how the showers keep breaking. The phone rings and she grabs it before Jet can. It's some guy named Fad, but she brushes him off and says Jet will call him back. Jet hears the name and just freezes. Now for the golden question. Who is this guy? Turns out Fad's one of Jet's old cop buddies. Jet meets up with him and gets the rundown. The prison ship's gone rogue, and guess who's on board? Uday, the scumbag who cost Jet his arm and made him quit the force. Jet flashes back to a raid they did years ago. He and Fad burst into a warehouse, split up. Jet corners Uday, but suddenly the lights flare on him. It's a trap, and someone shoots him. And that's how he lost his arm. At first, Jet doesn't want to get dragged into it, but he changes his mind. Before heading out, he tells Ed that if he doesn't come back, she should take care of his bonsai. Over at the prison ship, some police ships pull up, but Uday tricks them by launching an empty shuttle. It blows up right in their faces. Then he fires the ship's cannons to finish off any survivors. Jet and Fad meet up again on Fad's ship. Jet guesses Uday will run to Europa to find his old syndicate buddies. But when Uday calls for help, they shut him out. They don't want anything to do with him now. When Jet and Fad track Uday's ship, they split up to sneak in. Jet gets clipped by the ship's defense cannons, and Fad gets hit by a prisoner in a spacesuit firing rockets. Both ships take damage, but Jet latches on and makes it inside. Most of the inmates get outplayed by Jet and Fad. One prisoner tries to sneak out, but walks right into a busted airlock and gets sucked into space. Instant karma. The weird thing is, why does Fad only load a single bullet into his revolver? Why do that if you know you'll be fighting a ship full of prisoners? Makes you wonder. Meanwhile, Jet finally finds Uday and they go at it. Uday stabs Jet in the leg, pins him down, and brags that Jet never figured out the truth. It wasn't Uday who shot him. It was his own partner, Fad. Why? Jet wouldn't play dirty like the other crooked cops, so Fad helped set him up. Before Jet can process that, Fad shows up, shoots Uday in the head, and tells Jet he just never fit in. Then Fad raises his gun and goes, "Sayonara, partner." But Jet manages to get Uday's gun and shoots first, taking Fad out. Then Jet realizes that Fad's revolver only had one bullet, so there was a bigger chance he wouldn't hit Jet at all. Bro planned it that way, a messed up way to give his friend a chance and clear his own conscience. Jet sits with him and lights him one last cigarette as he fades out. You'd think after all that, the crew could finally catch a break. But nope. Because somewhere out there, while Jet's lighting a cigarette for the past, Ed and Ein are about to drag the whole Bebop into a whole new headache. So Ed and Ein dig through the Bebop's fridge. Totally empty. Meanwhile, Jet, Spike, and Faye argue over who ate the last rations. They're low on fuel too, just drifting towards Europa hoping they make it. Then, out of nowhere, bam! Another ship bumps into them and blasts off, knocking the Bebop off course. They end up crash landing on some dusty, half-built planet. Good thing, everyone's fine. Except Faye, who clutches her stomach and sprints for the bathroom. Yep, now we know who ate the last expired food. With the ship busted, Jet and Spike fix stuff, while Ed and Ein wander off to find food. They run into a bounty mess instead. Ed stows away in a car, gets mixed up with Domino, a guy running illegal mushrooms, plus Coffee, a bounty hunter chasing him, and a dude named Shaft who wants revenge. Ed and Ein manage to outplay the two bounty hunters and even catch Domino. But he tricks Ed into taking the mushrooms instead of turning him in. She thinks they're worth a fortune, but instead of real cash crops, they're just cheap shiitake mushrooms. Well, some of them. Because when the gang tries them, everyone on the Bebop trips out at first. Safe to say they're still broke, stuck with nothing but mushrooms. But for Faye, somewhere out there, a piece of her forgotten past is about to come back and nothing will ever feel the same. Now, on some random planet, Faye blows all her money betting on an IRL Uma Musume Pretty Derby and loses everything. Meanwhile, a mystery package shows up for Faye. It's covered in a ton of stamps and the shipping fee is insane. Just like, you're paying for this, not me. But Faye freaks out and dips because she's got a bad feeling about what's inside. Spike, being Spike, cracks it open anyway before Jet can try to return it. And you won't believe what they find. A Betamax videotape. There's a little note saying it's from before the big disaster that messed up Earth. So, yeah, at this point, this thing is super rare. Jet and Spike figure they can flip it for cash, so they haul it over to this old dude who collects vintage tech. They pop the tape in, and what comes up on screen is strange. It shows a young woman standing alone on a beach. Just as she turns towards the camera, the footage glitches out. But there's something about her. She looks kind of familiar. Spike tries to fix the machine by kicking it, and just ends up breaking the thing. The collector crashes out and demands they pay for repairs. Meanwhile, Ed finds another lead. There's an electric museum on Earth that might still have a real Betamax player, so the crew heads to Earth, leaving Faye behind. Speaking of, Faye calls the gang after she wins a bet at a dog race and gets pissed when she finds out they ditched her. Anyway, Jet and Spike go deep underground to this sketchy ruined building just to grab a player and TV. After a lot of parkour, venting, and close calls, they drag one back to the ship. But after all that effort, they got the wrong version. It's a VHS player, not a Betamax. Faye calls again, asking Ed if any scary guys showed up looking for her. Nope. But Faye decides to head back anyway, when she figures out the guys are all disappointed. Lucky for them, a second package shows up. And this time, it's a legit Betamax player. Perfect! As they hook it up, Faye shows up, but Jet doesn't want her watching until she pays up all the postage fees. So she dips, but she peeks around the corner anyway. And when the video plays, you won't believe what they see. At first, it shows some old landmarks, and then there she is. Teenage Faye, chilling with her friends, making a cheesy time capsule video for her future self. She's laughing, talking about her dreams 10 years from then, and telling herself she'll always cheer herself on. Damn, what really happened to Faye? How did she end up in that cryopod? And who is she, really? And who's the one sending her all these packages? Anyway, it's hard to answer that for now, but something's gonna happen to the gang soon. One of them will have to risk their life. Now, Jet and Faye are out in space, basically fishing for pirates. Faye's bored out of her mind waiting around. She's annoyed that Spike bailed to get the swordfish tuned up and hasn't even bothered to check in. Meanwhile, Spike's not exactly having the best day either. He crash lands his ship on Earth and ends up stuck there. A recovery truck pulls up, but instead of Duhan, the old mechanic who built the swordfish, it's his assistant Miles driving. They haul the battered ship onto the truck and head back to Duhan's shop. And Duhan himself is busy tinkering with his pet project. Some ancient relic he's trying to get back into the air. Back in space, the bait works. Pirates show up to grab the fish. Really, it's just a decoy pod. Faye swoops in, acting all tough, but the pirates hit her ship with a nasty computer virus instead. Her ship goes haywire, firing at jets, and the pirates bounce with the pod. To make it worse, the virus spreads to the Bebop too. Down on Earth, Duhan and Miles are still fixing up the swordfish. Spike calls Faye to see what the hell's going on. Meanwhile, Jet and Ed are scrambling to clear the virus before it fries everything. They figure out the stolen part they need was pawned off by the same pirates, who disguised themselves as a penguin delivery ship. So they hunt down a couple of these penguin ships. Turns out the pirates are using the legit company as cover. Spike and Faye decide to just open fire and see which one freaks out first. Both do, so they split up to chase them down. Faye picks the wrong one, but Spike's target is the real deal. The pirates hit Spike with the same virus trick, leaving him stuck trying to fly manually through an asteroid field. It kind of backfires on them though. They accidentally harpoon their own ship and get smashed by an asteroid. Jet swoops in to save Spike's ride, but the swordfish gets pulled into the atmosphere and starts burning up. If Jet tries to get close, the Bebop will burn up too. Luckily, Duhan and Miles are listening in. They radio Spike with a plan and launch Duhan's precious relic, an old space shuttle Columbia he's been restoring for years. They blast into orbit, snag the swordfish in the shuttle's cargo bay just in time, and bring it back down to Earth. Crash landing, but all walking away in one piece. They even take a picture, and it's funny that Miles even does the Spider-Man pose. Obviously a nod to Miles Morales. But Spike will soon come across something far deadlier and more insane than pirates. On a dark night, a shadowy figure flies over the city. A car with bodyguards pulls up for some VIP. Suddenly, a short guy in a suit, top hat, and a clown collar spawns in front of them. Bro just grins and starts killing everyone. After our MC finishes playing pool, Bro steps outside and sees the massacre. He is chill about it at first, but when the psycho spots him, the guy starts blasting. Spike takes cover and shoots back, but his bullets do nothing since this schizo's got a force field. Not only that, but Bro even floats and starts air comboing our boy. Right when he's about to finish Spike, a random cat meows and it distracts him. Spike takes a chance, kicks a gas tank at him, and blows it up. But even Michael Bay explosions can't save him. It knocks Spike into a wall, and Mr. Schizo just chucks a knife at him. Damn, this guy is bulletproof and explosion-proof. Bro's got way too many buffs, and he even manages to flex all his weapons. Then, he chases Spike with a grenade launcher and blasts him into a river. Before he can keep hunting, sirens wail and he disappears. Looks like our boy's safe. For now. The next day, Jet meets his cop buddy Bob for info. Bob tells him to drop it, but Jet won't let it go. Finally, Bob spills that the psycho's called Tongfu, and he's been picking off ISSP higher-ups. Later, Ed finds a message for Spike. It's a challenge from Tongfu. Faye tries to hide it, knowing Spike's in no shape to fight, but Spike grabs the laptop anyway. And you won't believe where they end up. An old shutdown amusement park called Spaceland. The second Spike steps in, the lights flicker on, and Tom Poo shows up, laughing and blasting at him. Spike dives into a ride, dodging sleds and grenades as the place glows up in flames. Meanwhile, Jet gets Ed to hack the ISSP files for some answers on Tom Poo, while Spike fights to stay alive. And wait till you hear what they discovered. Tom Poo was the messed up result of a secret experiment. He's broken out, and now he's hooked on killing, especially ISSP higher-ups. Spike tries to crawl out, but Tom Poo bombs him again. Faye shows up in her ship to help, but she gets shot down too. Spike crashes into a gift shop where Tom Poo corners him, but when a toy cat meows, Tom Poo freaks out, flashing back to the experiments with that red-eyed cat watching him. Spike takes his shot, pulls out the knife from earlier, and throws it. Tom Poo shoots him but gets stabbed in the leg, and it's probably the first time he's ever felt pain. He starts crying for his mom right before a giant animatronic rolls by and stomps him. But things are far from over, because the next that's waiting for them is a girl with secrets they never saw coming. So Jet gets this weird message out of nowhere from an old buddy, Pao Pu Zi, a feng shui master from Mars he hasn't seen in ages. The message says, "Seek the sacred beast of Anzan. I am where the four gods meet." So Jet heads to Mars to figure it out, only to find Pao's grave waiting for him. Then, out of nowhere, a teenage girl pops up behind the grave and shoves him out of the way right as two guys show up and start shooting.
What are you aiming at?
She whips out her luopan, basically a feng shui compass, and leads Jet through the streets. They hop onto an open-top bus, then jump into the river to ditch them and get away. Jet brings her back to the Bebop. Turns out she's Pao's daughter. Her name's Pao Mei Fa. She explains that her dad died 3 days ago in a hyperspace accident on his way to Jupiter. But here's what doesn't add up. Jet shows her the cryptic message he got from her dad that same day. She figures her dad must have been using feng shui signs, probably pointing to a sunstone. They stop for ice cream while Meifa gives Jet a quick rundown on Qi and universal feng shui. Meifa also opens up that she regrets not spending more time with her dad. Then she takes Jet up to a city rooftop, explaining that the local landmarks line up just like the four gods her dad mentioned. And they eventually find the sunstone. But the same goons from before show up again. This time, Jet's ready and takes them out. One of them spills that they're Blue Snake Syndicate guys tracking Pao after catching its message. Jet finishes him off, and Meifa asks if that means her dad's actually alive. Back on the Bebop, they scan the sunstone and find out it's a chunk of moon debris from the gate accident with weird energy in it. Meifa slots it into her luopan, and its magnetic pull starts pointing the way. She explains her dad probably has the other matching sunstone, and they're linked. She also admits she's hurt that he vanished without a word. Jet tells her that her dad was tangled up with a syndicate, and was Jet's informant, but couldn't break free or he'd put his family at risk. They follow the compass through space into a hyperspace tunnel, but the syndicate goons catch up and attack the Bebop. Spike and Faye fight them off, and Jet comes up with an idea. They launch the sunstone into space, and Spike blasts it with his plasma cannon. The stone explodes with energy, ripping open a hole in the tunnel, and on the other side, they spot Pao's ship. Pao calls in. He'd survived the accident, but has been trapped on the other side of this force field that's about to close forever. He brought them here just to say goodbye. Meifa breaks down, tries to tell him that she hates him and forgives him, but the call cuts off before she can finish. After it's all over, Meifa returns home to Mars and gently sets her luopan on her dad's grave. The Bebop crew just finishes up the whole deal with Meifa when Spike gets tangled in a new mess. And Bro ends up chasing a bomber and running into the most unhinged cowboy you've ever seen. So, inside a pair of twin skyscrapers, there's this security guard being all sus. balancing a teddy bear on a railing and walking off with this creepy grin. Spike stops him, hands the bear back, and calls him out before he knows he's actually a wanted criminal. Teddy Bomber. Spike pins him down, saying he defused the bear, but the guy just smirks and says, "There's more." He's about to rant about his plan when they both hear whistling, and out of nowhere, a cowboy appears. People call him Andy, and his horse is Onyx. Not gonna lie, he's got this crazy ass drip, but he's an idiot because Andy thinks Spike's the bomber, which gives the real guy a chance to dip and blow up the walkway between the towers. Back on the Bebop, Ed pulls up Andy's whole file online in 2 seconds. They also find out Teddy's next move is at this fancy masquerade party. So, the gang heads there and easily tracks Teddy. Because, bro, even without a tracking device, anyone with common sense would know who he is. Especially when you're dressed up as a giant teddy bear and your first name's literally Teddy. Come on, bro. Anyways, Teddy tries to rant about his deep reason for blowing buildings up. But, of course, Cowboy Andy shows up again and points fingers at the wrong person. This time, it's Jet. And everything goes sideways. Teddy takes the chance to set off more bombs and gets away in a car. Andy tries to chase him on his horse. Faye hops on too, but Andy just ends up blasting at Spike's ship in the sky and rides right past Teddy's car. Faye hangs out with Andy back at his place after that, but she finds out he's just a narcissistic guy who won't stop yapping and glazing himself, always spouting some philosophy that makes zero sense. When she returns to the Bebop, she shows up with some souvenirs though. It's just some weird homemade stew. Faye also points out that Spike and Andy are actually really similar, which of course pisses off our boy. Meanwhile, Teddy strikes again and even sends in a long challenge to the Big Shot show, but the hosts cut it off before they can finish reading it. This guy's so easy to read that Ed figures out what he was trying to say and pinpoints where he'll pull his plans next. So, Spike catches Teddy at City Hall, and once again, Teddy tries to explain why he's doing this. But Andy shows up right on time to mess it up again. Spike and Andy start arguing instead of focusing on Teddy. But Mr. Teddy is so done with this shit that he sets off another bomb and runs for an elevator. The 2 idiots follow him, but since they missed the elevator he actually used, they get on the one next to it. And Teddy totally outplays them because bro didn't even get in the elevator in the first place. Then he explains that he rigged the elevator, and once those 2 reach the top, it'll explode. No worries though, because Spike says he already hacked the elevator. The problem is, Andy brags he did too, and accidentally resets the code to some random mess. So when they hit the top floor, boom! But both of them manage to jump out alive. While they're still arguing like kids, Faye spots Teddy Bomber, punches him right in the face, and drags him off. Spike and Andy are still salty, so they start shooting at each other. When they run out of ammo, these idiots start throwing hands, and because of them, the animators didn't get any sleep. At some point, Andy manages to get the upper hand, but then Spike accidentally smashes a random office desk and hits it so hard that the entire floor Andy's standing on starts to collapse. Andy climbs back up, admits Spike got the win, hands over his cowboy hat, and says he's retiring from this cowboy nonsense. Good riddance. And Spike has no idea what the heck just happened. But who cares what Spike thinks? Can someone tell me how the horse manages to take an elevator? So before Andy rides off, Spike asks him what he'll do if he quits being a cowboy. Well, we'll get into that. But first, let's go back to our good old friend Teddy. So this guy finally gets to rant to some guard in a prison van about why he started bombing everything. And actually, it's surprisingly deep. But then it hits him it was all for nothing, especially after what he sees outside his window. And there he is. Andy rides past on his horse again, but this time he's switched it up and now he's cosplaying as a goddamn samurai. Absolute cinema. I know Andy's a total weirdo, but the gang's about to run into something like 10 times weirder. There's this guy, Dr. Lones, popping up all over TV, hyping up this freaky cult called Scratch. Basically, he wants people to upload their minds to the internet and live forever in some fake digital paradise. Meanwhile, people are bawling on talk shows about their missing kids. There's this ad for a shady brainwave gaming console, and trashy news shows are digging around trying to expose Scratch. Then it gets weirder. They're interviewing cult members, and guess who shows up? Faye Valentine herself, straight up saying she joined to ditch her debts. Spike and Jet just stare at the screen like, what the hell is she doing there? Spike starts poking around, pretending he wants to join just to get close to Lones. But every Scratch recruiter says something crazier than the last. One even claims Lones lives in heaven. Big Shot can't find any clues about him, so does this guy even exist? Meanwhile, Faye's not really brainwashed. She's sneaking through the facility undercover. She ends up finding a whole bunch of dead bodies piled up in this messed up place with nothing but a creepy compilation of TVs in the center. And the TVs start yapping and blasting some freaky signal that knocks her out. Since they need some kind of lead, Jet even lines up at a toy store, grabs that shady brainwave console, brings it home, plugs in, makes a fake profile, and bro almost gets hypnotized. But Ein bites his leg and snaps him out of it. Ed digs deeper, hacking into the console's network, and she pieces it together. Lones isn't even real. All the trails lead back to this hospice. Jet and Ed head there undercover. And man, we should give Jet an Oscar because bro managed to spin a sad story that even made the guard cry. The two find the source, a hacker kid named Rosny, stuck in a coma ever since an accident. His mind's plugged into the net, and he made Lones as a puppet to rope people in and make them out themselves. Meanwhile, Spike creeps through the Scratch compound, finds the creepy room, and sees Faye passed out in the middle of it. The screens light up, and Lones starts yapping again about how TV is the ultimate brainwashing machine that turns people into clueless zombies. The signal starts messing with Spike too, so he whips out his gun and just blasts the TVs apart. At the same time, Jet and Ed shut down Rosny's connection for good. Lones glitches out, begging not to disappear. But it's game over. Spike pulls through, Faye wakes up, and Jet logs the kid as caught anyway, even though he's stuck in that coma forever. On the way out, Jet can't help but feel kinda bad, realizing the whole cult was just a kid's twisted dream. Ed looks back at the hospice, hoping maybe Rosny's at least having some sweet dreams this time. But even after they shut down Lones, things don't just go back to normal. Faye's got ghosts creeping back into her head, and Ed's got secrets waiting to drag her somewhere she never planned to go. You see, Faye is actually re-watching this old tape from back when she was still on Earth. It shows the Merlion fountain. She pauses it, zooms in, and you can tell she's kind of fixated on it. Out of nowhere, Ed pops up and basically jump scares her. Then, half asleep, mumbles that she actually knows exactly where that spot is. Meanwhile, Spike's out on the deck brushing his teeth. Jet comes up asking where the hell they even are. Spike's like, bro, where on Earth? Jet's confused because they were supposed to head to Mars for a bounty, but he's grilling Spike about who changed their course. Then Spike points out the obvious. It's Faye, and she took Ed with her. When they get there, Ed leads Faye to this junkyard next to a tiny village, and Faye's disappointed, thinking Ed's just messing with her. Then a bunch of kids pop up yelling they found Ed. A nun comes out with a hose, accidentally soaks Faye, and freezes when she sees Ed. They bring them into the village. Ed actually used to stay at the orphanage, but wandered off 3 years ago. Then the nun hands Ed something really important. A hologram of a guy who showed up looking for her a couple of months ago. And that guy is her dad. So, Will Ed finally meet her father? Meanwhile, Faye tracks down the lion fountain. Then this old lady named Sally Young, kinda ironic, shows up and says she hasn't seen Faye since high school. She remembers Faye got the Captain America treatment after the accident, and that little reminder triggers Faye's old memories. Back on the Bebop, she's lying on her bed, mind racing, and can't sleep. She hops in the shower, trying to piece it all together, and boom! She remembers everything. She stumbles out of the shower looking spaced out, bumps into Spike, and says she's gotta go. She packs up, gets in her ship, and tells Ed someone's waiting for her too. That finding where you belong is the best feeling ever. While that's happening, Jet and Spike pull up a massive bounty. And guess who it is? Ed's dad. They manage to find him and his assistant, and Spike and Jet go 2-on-1 with Apple Deli. But Papa Ed solos them. Bro's just standing there, not budging an inch. Even when Ed nearly crushes him with a bebop, he stays put, planted like a goddamn rock. Then Ed jumps out like, "Surprise! That's my dad!" Jet and Spike are so confused, and then Jet realizes Ed set up the fake bounty. And her dad actually ain't worth shit.
Oh, no.
Apple Deli thanks them for looking after Ed, then asks her a tough question. Does she want to come with him? But before she can answer, a meteor comes crashing down, so he and his buddy grab their gear, hop in the ATV, and just dip. Straight up forget Ed standing there like, bruh. Then we see Faye run up this random hill, having wild flashbacks. This hill used to be where her family home was. But when she gets there, the space is completely wiped out. She lies down where her room used to be and just stares at the sky like, damn. But things get even sadder. Ed decides she's leaving too. She packs up her computer, paints a huge bye-bye and a goofy smiley face on the Bebop's deck, and slips out. Ein follows her, and at first she tells him to go back, but in the end, she lets him tag along. The last thing you see is Ed's little pinwheel taped to the Bebop, spinning in the wind while the sun sets. But at this point, things get even more depressing. It's a rainy day on Mars. A blonde woman comes home to her house and finds a message waiting for her, and it says she needs to run now because someone's coming for her. Meanwhile, Vicious tries to pull off a coup at the Red Dragon HQ, but it backfires hard. The elders call him a cocky snake they can't trust and say there's no way he's taking over. They sentence Vicious to death, but as they drag him away, he warns them a snake's bite kills slowly. Elsewhere, Spike and Jet are having drinks at a bar when Red Dragon thugs show up and started blasting. Spike and Jet duck for cover, but Jet gets shot in the leg. One of the gang guys, Shin, Lin's twin brother, switches sides to help them. Spike tells him that once he does this, there's no going back to the Syndicate. Shin explains the failed coup, Vicious getting locked up, and that Spike and Julia are both in danger. He tells them to head to Tharsis City, then covers them so they can escape. Spike drags Jet to a shady back alley vet to get patched up. Way to tell your friend he's an animal, huh? We see a flashback of Spike telling Julia he's done with the Syndicate after one last job. He begs her to meet him at a graveyard so they can run away together, but she says no. Later in that same room, Vicious has Julia at gunpoint and tells her to kill Spike or they'll both die. Back in the present, Faye's waiting at spaceport while her ship's getting unloaded. Spike calls, asking her to meet in Tharsis to help with Jet, but she snaps that he's being bossy and says she's got her own problems, then hangs up. Right then, a red car speeds by with another car chasing close behind. Faye decides to help the blonde driver and easily takes out the two cars tailing them. That's when she realizes the driver is Julia. Faye tells her she's a bounty hunter, and Julia says she's actually looking for one. At first, Faye's hesitant, wondering if this is really the Julia Spike kept talking about. But it clicks when, and before dropping her back at the spaceport, the woman introduces herself and says, "If you see Spike, tell him I'll be waiting." Faye's just standing there confused, wondering how the hell Julia knew she even knew Spike when she never said a word about him. Back on the Bebop, Jet tells Spike a story about a man who only thought about his past right before dying. He says he hates that kind of thing. He asks why Spike can't move on, and Spike says it's because of a woman who made him feel like life actually mattered again. Then Faye finally comes back, at first hesitant to tell Spike about Julia's message. Before they can really talk it through, an ISSP officer calls Jet to check in and spills the tea about the failed coup. Now anyone tied to Vicious, even by rumor, is marked for death. That, of course, includes Spike. Just as it says that, Red Dragon ships attack the Bebop. Spike jumps into his ship, but freezes when Faye finally tells him Julia's message. He doesn't say a word, just takes off. Faye jumps in too, and they fight off the Red Dragon ships together. In the middle of the fight, Jet tells Spike not to worry about them and to go find what he lost. Meanwhile, Vicious is chained up in front of a firing squad. Bro is getting lined up to be executed, but then his bird flies in and distracts the guards. His loyalists help him escape and wipe out the rest. The elders are killed on the spot, and Vicious declares himself the new leader of the Red Dragons. Right after that, Spike heads to the graveyard where Julia's waiting, and without a word, she lifts a gun and points it right at him. Julia tells him that if she had just pulled the trigger back then, like she was ordered to, she'd be free now. But instead, she drops the gun, throws her arms around him, and begs him to just run away with her for real this time. Shin shows up at the scene of the Red Dragon slaughter and reports to Vicious that Spike and Julia slipped through. Vicious doesn't kill him, just gives a cold warning not to end up like his brother. Meanwhile, Spike and Julia head over to Annie's place, but it's too late. They find her bleeding out from a gunshot.
Oh no!
She tells them gangsters came looking for Spike, and she overheard that Vicious wiped out all the elders. Not long after, Annie dies. Spike grabs her stash of weapons and gets ready to settle things once and for all. Then it goes full PvP. Spike and Julia fight their way to the rooftop. But out of nowhere, Julia takes a bullet in the back. As she's dying in Spike's arms, she whispers something only he hears. Then Spike returns to the Bebop one last time. He sits down with Jet and tells a quick story about a cat that kept getting reincarnated until its partner died. Then it just stopped coming back. Spike says Julia's gone. He gets up to leave, but Faye blocks him with a gun. She calls him out. He told her to forget her past, yet he's still trapped on his own. Faye gets it now. Spike was not planning on coming back. She says her memories are back too, but there's nowhere for her but the Bebop. Spike says he has to find out if he's really alive. He brushes past her. Faye breaks down and fires her gun into the ceiling, but Spike doesn't even flinch. Spike storms Red Dragon HQ solo, mowing down guards with guns and grenades. Shin tries to help, but gets killed. Spike reaches Vicious's throne room. Vicious sets up a trap that blows the roof open. They face off, Spike with a gun, Vicious with a sword. They knock each other's weapons away, but instead of ending it, they pass the weapons back and go again. Spike gets the shot off first and finally kills Vicious. As Vicious drops, Spike remembers what Julia said. It's all a dream. Then he stumbles down the steps, bleeding out. The guards at the bottom just stare. They don't do shit. Spike looks up at them, makes a finger gun, says bang, and collapses. After that, you see Spike lying there, eyes closed, smiling. This is a story and a weight you're now meant to carry. And what about you? Do you want to see season 2? Just let us know in the comments. See you next time!